Welcome in, everyone. Let's talk about the stimulus update for Friday, May 1st. Happy May. We're going to get to whether or not we're actually going to see a second stimulus. It looks like the White House is hinting that they don't want to roll out a second stimulus. Is it canceled? We'll talk about that, and that seems like to be a shift over the past few days from what we were hearing from the White House last week. Plus, what happens to those unemployment benefits if you get called back to work? We'll get to that, plus Social Security updates for those on Social Security and how much more quickly you can get your stimulus payments. And we've got a lot of bad news as it relates. It's getting violent out there, folks, for postal carriers and other people who are receiving their stimulus checks. We'll get to those horrible stories in just a moment. But first, let's give you the big news out of the White House. And here is the big news at this hour from the White House. We are hearing from Kevin Hastert, who earlier this week, he was telling a lot of the different Sunday shows that they're ready to work with Congress on getting a second stimulus. But now the White House is saying a fourth stimulus bill may not be needed if the states bounce back. This is according to the White House. That probably very shortly, I'm going to read, I think probably very soon, very shortly, we'll have a better idea about whether we need to extend the current existing things or move on to new ideas. And he says if they really do sort of get back to normal relatively quickly, then there might not necessarily be much need for another bill. Effectively saying the course of the economy will depend heavily on how effective this nation stops the spread. So on the one hand, you have the White House saying that, which is, okay, if we're getting back to speed, maybe that one stimulus bill that we had for $1,200 and the PPP payments for all of those small businesses out there, that second batch that's rolled out, that might be enough. And now we're also hearing from the Senate. We've heard from Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who's also echoed similar sentiments, that they want to slow roll all of this money, which I have to admit is a smart approach, Congress, finally, for thinking about how you want to actually not spend money. But this might not be the time to pull back on the accelerator when so many people are out of work. I mean, look at the latest job numbers that we just had come out. Over 30 million Americans unemployed. We are at 19%, 1,900% increase in jobless claims. This is unprecedented. And when you look at what Paul Krugman and others are saying at the New York Times, from an economic standpoint, from an economist standpoint, we are headed towards 16% unemployment, which, think about that. During the last recession, we were at about 8% unemployment, 16% unemployment. So we're just seeing a trickle right now. The downpour is coming as all of these companies have to lay people off. So the White House is considering, like, hey, things might be getting better now. We might not have to roll out this second stimulus. And if Republicans in Congress don't seem to want to do an extra stimulus package either, then I don't think we're going to see it. But there was talk, of course, of a few proposals that have been floating around out there where we would see maybe an additional $2,000 a month from one particular plan, maybe $1,000 a month from another plan. We would see rent and landlords being taken care of with wiping away rent and mortgages for a temporary time. So these were all a bunch of proposals floating around out there. But right now, we don't have anything. And Congress is away being told to stay away. But here's what I don't get, folks. Because the White House is saying this. You're hearing that states are starting to reopen, restaurants and so forth in Atlanta. But then we see this story today. So while President Trump is saying that, look, this death toll is not so bad, the White House sort of just quietly ordered another 100,000 body bags. 100,000 body bags. So if everything is getting back to normal, why are we ordering so many additional body bags right now? And we're a story out of New York about finding all of these bodies in a refrigeration truck in New York, and the refrigeration truck stopped working, so that's how people found out about it. Awful, awful stuff, folks. So what do you guys think? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let me know, do you need another stimulus? Also, we did put up a poll you can click on right here. It's a card that pops up that lets me know, and it says, yes, you received your stimulus money, or no, you did not receive your stimulus money. Just click on that. And if it's not applicable, there's also an area that says not for me. So let me know. I would love to know your thoughts on a second round of stimulus checks, but right now it doesn't look like it's going to happen. And if we're looking at what's coming out of Washington, Congress is not there. They're not allowed to return to Washington because of the virus in the city. The congressional physician has said, stay away, stay out of Washington, D.C., because we're seeing a rise in infections. So again, a rise in infections, businesses aren't able to open yet, and yet the government is saying, we think we're okay. I don't think people are okay. I think people are absolutely getting crushed right now. Which brings me to my next point, and next story I wanted to talk about, which is what happens to those unemployment benefits if you get called back to work. Now, I've spoken to some business owners who've said they're worried that when they pick up the phone and they call their employees who've been furloughed, not fired, but furloughed because they have no work for them right now, hey, we're reopened, come on back to work. What will happen to their unemployment benefits? Well, guess what? What we're now hearing is that those unemployment benefits will end. But many people are making more now in their unemployment benefits than they're making from their jobs. And are you going to see a lot of people trying to pull the wool over employees' eyes? Again, I would love to know. Tell me in the comments what you would do in this situation. Would you blame someone who basically maybe didn't even pick up the phone when their employer called? Like, oh, my voicemail box might have been full, or I didn't answer the phone, or I didn't see that email that we're reopening, and then just stayed home and collected unemployment benefits. Would you look unfavorably on that person? Or would you say this person, was laid off or furloughed, they're hurting, and this extra money is helping them, so do what you have to do? I know how I feel about it. I think it would be, highly unethical to find out that your job is ready to go again, you're allowed to return to work because there was a government sanction on keeping your doors closed. And now you get to go back to work, earn an honest paycheck, and you're back employed again. Go back to work. If you want to quit, then quit. Say, I don't want to work here anymore. Now, if you were fired because, if you were fired under this and you were actually laid off, that's different than being furloughed, right? Like Disney furloughed 43,000 people in Orlando, in Walt Disney World. That's a different animal. They're being told we can't open, so don't come to work because the state of Florida told us we cannot open. So you have to stay home. We'll continue to pay your benefits, your health benefits and so forth, but you can't come in. And then other companies have had to fully lay people off, fired, gone. Sorry, we can't do anything about this. So that's a different animal, I think. News this morning also for the PPP program and an update on those stimulus checks for small businesses, any business under 500 employees that applied for these things. Now, if you applied through like Wells Fargo or some of these other big banks, it's been frustrating. They've been sending emails saying that they're sorry, we're waiting, we're to try to be patient. But if you went and filed for your PPP loan right through like PayPal or Fundera, these other funding sources, these other fintech companies, they're able to do it in like 2 days. It's amazing. So these big like legacy banks like Wells Fargo, Chase, they're having to send all sorts of material basically letting you know that they don't have this, they don't have the money yet, they're delayed, we're sorry, they keep piling up all of these excuses. So, use PayPal, use Fundera, Fundera. They got it done like 2 days. We heard from a lot of you that got your PPP loans to be able to pay for payroll. Now, of course, under this law, under this forgivable loan, it has to be used for payroll to pay your employees, and 25% can go to rent and some other expenses. But we learned today from the IRS, here's another update. The IRS just updated this to say it's very important that you work with your CPA. You cannot also claim these expenses on your tax return. So if you use this PPP loan to pay for rent or other expenses or payroll, you cannot then also claim that on your tax return. That would be a double tax benefit because it's already tax-free, it's forgivable. So they're not going to give you two tax benefits for this thing, which makes a lot of sense. So just please be careful. Do not try to file your taxes and double claim these expenses on your return. You will get slapped by the IRS. The IRS is also auditing any company that's getting one of these loans that's more than $2 million. More than $2 million. because they want to make sure that things are things that are definitely on the up and up with people who are using these things. So if you are new here, I'd love to hear your comments below about what you want out of this stimulus. Did you receive it? There's a poll right here in the card. So click on the card and let me know in the poll, did you receive it? No, you didn't, or it's not applicable. I want to turn into some other stories now that are kind of hard to look at. But first, before I do that, I want to talk about Social Security. So we're going to talk about this because here's what's going to happen for Social Security recipients. And there's 3 different pieces I wanted to mention here. The money doesn't count as income for tax calculations or benefits eligibility. It's about $1,500 per month in 2020. So that $1,200 means that's a significant increase in income, but that does not count as income. I've gotten that question from a number of different people on Social Security. Another point here that really is interesting that the Fool.com brings up is that you may need to take action to get your stimulus payment if you started your benefits. So if you didn't file a tax return in either 2018 or 2019 and you just started receiving Social Security benefits in 2020, they won't necessarily be able to have that information from the IRS. So they don't talk to each other. Look, one thing we know about government agencies is that they very often don't know what the other agency is doing, okay? And so if you started getting Social Security benefits, the IRS might not know that. So you please make sure you go to irs.gov to make sure that you're registered on their website as a non-filer so that they can track you appropriately. So go to the non-filers tab on irs.gov and input your information so that they can get you a direct deposit. Now, if you still file taxes and you've been getting Social Security for years and you do it electronically, they have your information already on file. So that's not something you need to worry about. All right, the third point that they bring us up is that you could get more money by submitting a 2020 tax return if the IRS didn't know about your dependents. Now, we've been telling you about this one, of course, for a few days now, and this is really important. You have until May 5th, everybody, May 5th. What's today? May 1st. So you have a few days to go to their website and go to the non-filers tab and make sure you input the fact that you have a dependent. They don't know that you have children. And if you haven't filed a tax return, they don't know that you don't have a dependent. So if you've got 2 children and they didn't know about it, you can get an additional $500 per child under the stimulus bill. But you got to go to their website and you've got to do that. So I hope that, so I hope you get a chance to look at that, okay? Go to their website and make sure that that's good enough for you. Or everything is set up on the back end for your account to make sure you're getting that stimulus money. Okay, a couple other things I wanted to talk about. You want to actually set up your direct deposit, okay? If you have not set up your direct deposit yet, again, it's very simple to go to the IRS website and to set that up right on irs.gov and take care of it. It's very, very simple to do. Just you can go right through their app and do it, and then you'll be good to go. So make sure that you set that up. Otherwise, you're going to be waiting for that paper check, which might not actually not come for many, many months, we're hearing. A couple of other big stories we're following. This is crazy, man. It's getting violent out there. This is scary stuff. Did you hear about this? I'll show you this story. 4 men in Indiana. Indiana has gotten violent lately. Violent. And it's also been a major hotbed for coronavirus as well. They've had a really rough go of it out there. But look at this. 4 men basically confined a woman in her home in order to rob her of her stimulus check. The house was broken into. The suspects were aware that she had received her check, and they intended to rob her for it. What I'm trying to figure out is, how does someone, if you don't have an ID, you don't have an identification in your name, are you planning to have that person go to the bank, cash that money out, and then give it to you? Like, I don't understand what the play is here. Or maybe I don't understand how these checks work. But we're also seeing the same thing with postal workers. Look at this sad story out of Indiana also. More Indiana news. Indianapolis postal worker was shot dead as she was delivering mail on Monday, and they believe that she was targeted by someone who didn't receive a stimulus check, as if she's responsible. So this guy allegedly guns this woman down for delivering the mail because he's a moron and thinks that she is responsible for bringing him his stimulus check, as if she's the one cutting the checks. How sad is that? Come on, people. Unbelievable. Sad. And this woman just doing her job. And by the way, she's out on the front line, having to go door to door and not get coronavirus, and she gets killed. I mean, these people are on the front lines right now. Just awful, awful story. And if that's not enough, look at this guy out of New York. Not to be outdone, a New York City man on Tuesday stole over $12,000 in stimulus checks from mailboxes. Prosecutors say for many families, these stimulus checks are a lifeline in these difficult times, and they tried to cut that lifeline. They're going to face the full weight of the law, the prosecutors say. He went to all these mailboxes. His name was Feng Chen. He was spotted by police Tuesday morning looking inside mailboxes in Brooklyn, and he grabbed $12,000 in stimulus checks from people. Again, I don't understand the game here. If that check is made out to you, how in the world is that, are you going to go to the bank and cash that check? I don't get it. You have to show an ID to cash a check, right? That's the play. So how do you go and do this if you've got a check in somebody else's name? I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. Let me know in the comments below if I've totally missed something on this. So there you go. That's your stimulus update for Friday, May 1st. White House basically saying, hey, if things are turning back to normal here, we might not need a second stimulus. Congress out of session right now, being told to stay out of Washington. If we see anything happen at all, it wouldn't happen until mid-May or towards the end of May. Right now, though, I'm not too hopeful. If the White House doesn't want to spend the money and the Republican-held Congress doesn't want to also sign off on something from the House of Representatives, we might be sitting on just that one stimulus check at this point, folks. But again, keep it right here. Subscribe to our channel. Give me a like. We're going to keep our eye on all of this economic news that's coming out. This channel is devoted to helping you build financial intelligence and financial freedom. So thank you so much for subscribing, and we'll see you again in the next video.